Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for tuning in once again to another episode on the After Maghrib podcast. We are in the month of Muharram and I really hope you found the previous podcast very beneficial. And inshallah, today's topic, we're going to talk about the rise of English Majalis throughout the Western world. And before we delve into this topic, Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, Sayyid. How you doing?
Husayn, alhamdulillah, how are you?
Alhamdulillah, good. It's been so far, of course, a very eventful, heart-wrenching month of Muharram thus far, and you know, we're grateful to our communities, to our families for giving us the opportunity to mourn, and of course to Abdullah Husayn for granting us the blessing of being able to commemorate him, his message once again. Alhamdulillah. But of course today we are having a very interesting discussion. But before we get into that, brothers and sisters, just want to thank you again for your feedback from last week. We hope you enjoyed it. And to subscribe to the YouTube channel, the After Maghrib YouTube channel, because we said last week, and we'll say it again, we want to get to 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year, inshallah. So with your support, we can do that. And inshallah, we can keep the community growing.
Ahsant. And it's so important that you do hit that subscribe button because it will get the community, inshallah, engaging. And that's the purpose behind this podcast, because this is a platform for you. And you can even leave us feedback of what you would like us to discuss and talk about.
Absolutely. So say today, we're obviously, you mentioned we're talking about the English language. To kind of maybe introduce the topic, the English language is, especially if we're talking about the Western Shia world, is a language which brings many communities together.
Yes.
And also engages with the wider society when it comes to talking about the religion of Islam and especially of the story of Abdullah al-Husayn. But we want to identify how the English language has been used. Is it used too much? Is it used not enough? Are there ways we can use it more? Or maybe are we not staying true to our mother tongue? So this is, I think, what we want to get into.
I think the fact that we live in the Western world, and you know, us personally being here in the United Kingdom, English plays a big role when it comes to Majalis. And I'm a big advocate of English Majalis. And whoever asks me, you know, how is the Majlis, I always tell them, you need a bit more English. And that's important because I recite in English. So I see the impact and the difference it has with someone who doesn't understand the language that center's using. You know, I mainly go to Iraqi centers. So they always have, not the majority of them, but mainly the youthful ones. So they'll have the lecture in English, the first about 40 minutes or so. Then they'll have the musab in Arabic, the nauha in Arabic, and everything else is done in the mother tongue language. And then whoever's there that doesn't understand the language just feels left out, and they want to be part.
It's interesting you mentioned, because you said whenever someone says, how was the Majlis? I say, it's okay, but needed more English. I had to do a double take. I was like, what? The reason why is because I only go to English Majalis, pretty much.
Yes.
And I always have. I'll be really frank. I've sat in a lot of Urdu Majalis, which is my mother tongue. And, but as an adult, and now, alhamdulillah, as a head of a family, I will go to an English Majlis. My wife goes to predominantly Arabic Majlis. So there's a bit of a, you know, but we can get into that. Of course, there's all sorts of discussions to have with this topic.
The reason why I say we need a bit more English is because we are attending English advertised Majalis.
Right.
You know, so if the center's advertising, we are holding an English Majlis, whoever's attending is expecting English throughout. Now, I'm not telling you to recite Quran and Adai and Ziyarah in English. It's very clear that's done in the Arabic language. But your lecture and any azar, nauha, eulogy, whatever it is you're holding has to be in English.
So I think I stand in a slightly awkward position in this. To give you some context, I am a fifth generation migrant, you could call it, to the UK, where my
Hussaini migrant,
alhamdulillah, where my great grandmother moved to the UK, and obviously my son now, his great grandmother moved to the UK. So for him, it's even more kind of I'd say he's more affiliated to the culture we have here. But I'm someone who has in my family various cultures. My father was born in Iraq. My mother was born in India. My dad speaks a number of languages. So does my mum, and so does my grandmother. And I'm married to someone of a different culture. My child will speak a different language. Do you see what I mean? So there are many people, I think, like me in this day and age, who are so culturally mixed. We call it like a halal mocktail in some ways, where you'll need some sort of a hybrid, like you said, where you can appeal to people regardless of culture.
Yeah.
But the question which comes in, are our communities primarily cultural or primarily religious? Because if it's primarily cultural, then we can say, well, look, we have come here as a community from our homeland, and we are here hosting the story of Abu Abdullah for our people. Nothing wrong with that. But some may argue that you're here as a religious community center or a community organization, first and foremost. Hence, your primary responsibility should be to reach every single person out on the street or out in the public who wants to engage with your majlis.
Yeah, I mean, every community, I guess, decides on their own what way to move forward based on, I think, their audience and who attends their center mainly. But, you know, sometimes that can have a really bad effect, because I have seen it happen in my own community where they never really focused on English.
Okay.
And then there was this split where the majority of the youth wanted at least a lecture in English. They didn't mind the Latin being in Arabic.
Yeah.
But they wanted a lecture in English, and they were not doing that. So it sort of took them out, and they did their own thing. But then you have other centers who do both. So they'll hold the mother tongue English, be Urdu, Farsi, Afghan, whatever it is, but they'll also hold on the side English at the same time simultaneously.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole community is catered for. So people who are majority, for example, let's say are from Pakistan, for example, that speak Urdu, you'll have the Urdu lecture.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, you will have in the same venue, just probably in a different hall, an English lecture happening at the
Do
same
you like
time.
that idea?
I love that. Because that means you can go with your mom, you can go with your dad, you can go with your uncle, you can go with your son, whoever. The whole family can go to the same community center, but they can, you know, go to whatever suits them best. But then when you have someone who prefers, for example, the mother tongue, it becomes difficult now.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, you can have your wife or your mom or your sister wants to go to a different center because they prefer Arabic, for example. And then you can have the brother or the nephew or the son wants English. And then it becomes very difficult.
I think the point you mentioned was nice about having two local. I mean, the center I've grown up in and the center I still visit, shout out Stanmore. We have the main hall, we call it, which is primarily in Urdu, and then we have the English listening or English language center, the ELC, which is of course for English, and that really took off when I was young, maybe in the late 90s, early 2000s, and it became a hub for our generation. Started off with weekly attendees, 20, 30 people. Now we're talking thousands every year in that particular hall in the same center. And when we recite in our center, even in the English language center, we will many of the time recite in Urdu. I recite in Urdu. I don't speak Urdu fluently as well as I should and would like to, but I recite in Urdu. And we have a policy that everything on the screen has translation. Kind of provided by the reciter before they go up. You have to give a translation of what you're reciting, because you never know. We now live in a day and age where not every Shia is Pakistani or Iraqi or Afghani or Iranian or whatever it might be. We have a lot of new members of our community from the UK, reverts who have joined the community, people who have come from far and wide, people who bring their university, college peers and so on, their work friends, their workmates to come and join a majlis. I see it so often. So it's important, I think, for us to cater to that. Yeah,
you know, also, I remember when I was growing up, it was always, everything was Arabic.
Okay.
Like every single thing was Arabic. But at that time, everyone spoke and wrote and read Arabic. We were able to. But times have changed. And people don't really understand the mother tongue language properly. Yani, let's say, you know, inshallah, I hope my daughters will understand Arabic correctly. And hopefully they won't have any issues growing up, speaking, writing, whatever it is in the Arabic language. But a lot of people do. And when they do, the only thing that's going to make them understand what the lecturer was talking about or what the Aza is about is if it's in the English language. Now, don't get me wrong. You can have both. You know, whether you want to quote a Quranic ayah, whether you want to quote a narration, a hadith, whatever it is, whether you want to do the masa'ib and mix it a little with English and Arabic, or Farsi and Arabic, or Urdu and Arabic, whatever it is. Same thing with the eulogy. You can have a few verses in the mother tongue language, then you can have a few verses in English. And it works and it caters to the entire community. But when you have the separation where we focus only on Arabic, or we focus only on Urdu, for example, you are leaving out the future generation.
I do agree with that.
And when I say that, I would not have this opinion if I don't hear people talking about this.
Yeah.
Because I recite mainly in English.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing the effect it has.
Why do you recite mainly in English?
Because there is a gap. There is a gap.
So are you reciting to tailor the market? Or you're reciting
I wouldn't call it a market.
Do you see what I mean?
I understand
the
your
audience,
point.
The demand of the audience.
There is a big demand.
Yeah.
There is a big demand. It's mainly younger people. So we're not talking about people, I think, in the late 20s or 30s or 40s. We're talking about, let's say, 15, 16, all the way till about 25, 26.
But to be honest,
they prefer English because they understand the whole thing.
Yeah.
They understand word for word.
But there's also, like, honestly speaking, I think there is a demand also from people who are older.
Yeah.
I do believe that, because there's a lot of, especially if we're talking about the Pakistani community and the South Asian community, a lot of our communities moved here, as I said, in the 50s and the 60s. We're talking about the UK specifically, but also even the US and North America. But a lot of the 50-year-olds in these cultures and these communities speak English as their first language. Yes. Husbands and wives, grandmothers and grandparents together, they all speak English as their first tongue. So reciting in English is a beautiful thing. However, saying this, we know, of course, Ayatollah Sayyid Sistani, may Allah lengthen his life, advised specifically the youth to stay close to the mother tongue, because it will give ties with our culture, our identity, which we should be so proud of. So again, my question back to you is, if you've recited in English for X many years, do you ever think about switching, or do you ever think about doing, I think you've done Arabic and English in the same qasida before.
For me, it depends on what the community is asking.
Okay.
So normally they'll tell you we want Arabic, or they'll tell you we want just English, or we want both. I love it when it's both.
What about the argument? Sorry to keep asking.
Ask,
I'm really interested. People will say that, and we know this is a fact, the Arabic language or Urdu or Farsi or whatever it may be, there are so many words to describe one thing, whereas in English you're restricted. Let's say the word love as an example. In Arabic you have ishq, you have muhabba, you have all of these words, you know. There's all sorts of hierarchies and rankings of love which you don't have with the English language, where you're restricted to a 4-letter word.
I don't agree, but then we can say the same thing to people holding lectures or eulogies in Russian or in Chinese or in any other language. It's no different with it being English.
Interesting. Okay.
By the way, I agree with the point of Sayyid Ali Sistani, may Allah lengthen his life, where it's important to hold on to your mother tongue, but I don't think he's referring specifically to just, for example, Majalis. Day-to-day life.
No, day-to-day life, absolutely. And with Majalis, of course, we have to remember that the English language within the Western world is what will progress our communities further.
It is, and it opens up a new audience.
Yeah.
And when I say new audience, people who don't know Arabic, or people who don't know Urdu or Farsi, whatever language the Majalis are in, English is a universal language. So that means every, Tom, Dick and Harry can understand what's going on, can understand the message of Imam Hussain, can understand what happened at Karbala, and even can, benefit from the lectures. Not just learning what took place in Karbala. The majority of the lectures don't just focus on the events of Ashura,
Such a good point.
But you learn so much more if you do in English, for people who are not part of
and the thing is,
Shia faith.
It's interesting because a lot of us in our day-to-day lives, we learn and we teach in English. We communicate and we transfer information between one another in English. So if we're learning and we're comprehending a topic or a subject in the English language, our brains are wired to do that.
Yeah.
We will approach Islam and the story of, in this case, of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein in the English language in a similar way. So for example, when I listen to a lecture, I listen to an English lecture. I do when I'm driving, and may Allah bless all our scholars who recite in all languages. There are some lectures I've listened to from the day I was born, literally speaking, growing up in a community. And then, of course, the lecturers that have, for several years, been a big part of our lives on YouTube or on TV channels like Ahlul Bayt TV, which was, of course, as we know, was the first channel which came out in the English language. But what that has done is it has found a medium where you can connect your identity in the West to your identity from religion. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's brought that information and these two things together and allowed us to reignite our understanding of religion in a new light, and then maybe find a way to present that information to non-Muslims who don't understand Arabic or don't understand Urdu.
Like, speaking from my own perspective, this whole debate of English or this mother tongue. I used to be, quite regularly at Majalis. It was like pretty much part of my life. So like you'll be there every Tuesday, every Thursday, every Friday, every Shahada, whatever it is. And it was always in Arabic. But I really never understood everything. Because the lecturer would normally speak in, Arabic. But it's like Fusha Arabic. So it was a bit...
And this is coming from your marhum father was...
He was also a lecturer.
He was a lecturer.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. So it will always be like Fusha Arabic. I would understand most, but whoever else I was with didn't understand a single thing. So you'll find them outside in the car park and getting shouted at to go back inside to hear the lecture, but they didn't understand nothing from beginning to end. And, I think because parents didn't focus heavily on teaching their little ones the mother tongue language, had this effect. And now it's led to the rise of English Majalis, because now people don't understand the mother tongue language. So they prefer these English Majalises. And I remember the first time I heard an English Majlis. I don't know how old I was. I was definitely very young.
Really?
And it was something like new. Everyone was like, the Sayyid is in town. And I think the area was somewhere in Willesden.
Yeah.
It was definitely a hall somewhere in Willesden.
Yeah.
And... we attended. It was Sayyid Mehdi Mudarrisi giving the lectures. And I was like, what? Like you can actually like talk about Karbala and religion and Islam in English. It was like weird. It was weird. And I remember we went quite a few times, and every time we'd go to his lecture, I'd learn like a new English word, because he uses these like vocabulary that I've never heard in my life sometimes. I'm like, what does that word mean? But it really connected with me. Hearing the story of Karbala in English, having a full understanding of what the lecturer was saying, I think was important. And I don't know, if I do not prefer my mother tongue language. I love it. Especially now we have this English Majalis, Arabic Majalis. I go to both. So I go to the Arabic, and
let me just say,
I go to the English, so I get the best of both worlds.
Let me just be honest. You are very lucky to speak Arabic and to speak it fluently at that. And to be really honest, I don't think you understand what a blessing you have, being able to speak Arabic and being able to understand it, communicate in it, and on top of that, speak in English as well. Yeah. Because you have the ability to see things from different perspectives. You can gather knowledge from so many different angles that a lot of people are restricted to one angle. If they only speak one language, whether it's their mother tongue or they speak English only. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So that blessing that you have, bilingual blessing, a lot of people are trilingual nowadays as well, and if not more, I don't know what the next one is, quadlingual or something.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have this blessing, and it's something which really I think is what our faith is about. It's about multiculturalism. We talk often about the time when Imam al-Hujjah, Ajjallahu Farajah Sharif, will return. Imam al-Hujjah is not for one community. He's not for one language. He's not for one city. Imam al-Hujjah is universal. He will give, we hope, khutbah in different language. He will interact with people from different cultures, different backgrounds. Imam al-Hujjah will understand, make an effort to understand different cultures. And therefore, I think our responsibility is to understand different cultures. Yeah. When you go to a center, which is not your motherhood, your mother center, if that makes sense, your mother cultural tongue, center, mother tongue center, take it in, like soak it all in. If I go to, for example, a lecture and it's in Arabic, which I've been in that situation many times before, even if I understand 5%, I'll make a niyyah, I'll try my best. And specifically, even the culture around me, like the way people put their shoes in the bags. I've never seen that in my center. It's a whole new thing. The way, for example, the qima is served after the majlis. That's a cultural thing which I've never experienced. But you take it in. This is the beauty of Muharram, and the season that we're in is, like we said, it's infectious. The love of Abdullah is infectious, and that love can be spread in so many ways. The way you do latmiyat and the whole, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not used to that. I'm used to lambe hat, matam. Like,
I love
do you
that,
see what
by
I
the
mean?
way. Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
this is
Full of passion.
the beauty, the beauty that we have in cross-cultural relations in the UK specifically, or in the Western world, is, I think, is something we shouldn't lose. We should have our mother cultural centers or mother tongue centers there, and they should continue to do majalis in Arabic or in Urdu, whatever it might be, but facilitate for those who don't understand, and maybe have a simultaneous majlis.
Yeah.
I mean, at least that's the way I see it.
As in, for me, it's not about an argument or a fight of which language should the majlis be in.
Yeah.
You can have your majlis, you can have your Arabic, Farsi, Urdu, whatever, Chinese, Russian. I'll go as far as that, because I've heard recently a few nauhas in Chinese and Russian. I was like, wow. It's
Message is global.
It's literally global, but English is a universal language. I can say 100 times. You can go to France, English is spoken. You can go to
Africa,
English
South
is
America,
spoken. South America, Middle East, English is spoken. English is such a universal language; it attracts everyone from everywhere. So when you go to an English majlis, you will find every single culture, identity, language sitting and listening to the English lecture. You can go to your mother tongue, you'll only find people from your mother.
I was going to say this is actually a good point, because what's interesting is, let's take Arabic as an example, because it's easy to identify a geographical location. The people who listen to Arabic majalis are either in the Middle East, or they're Middle Eastern people around the world. Or they're people who speak Arabic around the world. The interesting thing with English is you can give a lecture from London, UK, talk about the effect of XYZ issue in the community, talk about the rise of this problem, talk about solutions for that problem. And you may have someone in Nairobi, Kenya, who fully understands your message. Maybe someone from a completely different culture, someone from Alaska, someone from Australia. But the thing is, you're touching various communities around the world, and complete different ethnicities, different cultures, and being able to perhaps, inshallah, impact their lives and their day-to-day interactions as well. I think that's maybe kind of also like somewhat of a motivation behind the After Maghrib podcast, because, you know, our goal is specifically targeted for the Shia Western youth. But the idea being is that, you know, we have listeners and we've engaged with so many people. We've said before, about 50%, give or take, of our listeners are international. And loads of us come from different backgrounds, different cultures, but we all share something in common.
We're both speaking English.
We're both speaking English.
Well, we have different backgrounds.
But we share
What's
Hubb
brought us
al-Husayn.
together? What's brought us together?
Hubb al-Husayn.
Hubb al-Husayn?
Yeah.
But what language?
English, of course. Of course. And to be able to, like I said, connecting Hubb al-Husayn.
Why is Ahl Bayt TV in English?
Because of its universality. Universality?
I think that proves my point now.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're on the same page. And again, we reiterate this to everyone below. You know, we want to know what you think on this. Comment down below. Do you only listen to mother tongue language? If so, why? Do you only listen to English language? If so, why? And also latmiyat.
Ahmed, I want to move slightly away from this debate of English majlis or having the majlis in the mother tongue.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about the English language and how it's affected positively our community, our children, and the future generation to come. And we've seen, mashallah, communities arranging camps where people can go and have the kids can go, and you can be from any different background, you can speak any different language. Everything is in English, and it's bringing the community together, and they are learning and being educated about their faith. That's one example. And then you have other examples. For example, you have now educational materials that is helping our youth, is helping our children, our young ones, even from primary school age. Because I know we've had like this discussion, you know, outside of the podcast where you gave an example. For example, sometimes the schools can give conflicting information to our little ones. Do you want to touch about that a bit? I think it will be beneficial for the people hearing.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because there are a lot of avenues of information in the day and age we're living in. Social media, influence from friends and young people, obviously peer pressure and so on. And obviously, generally speaking, when we look at curriculum in Islamic schools, the curriculum in Islamic schools is more identifiable, of course, with the Islamic values that we try to give to our children. These are really important things for us to take into account. The English language has been able to, for example, grasp and to pull various communities within our madhab, bring them to a central place and find a way to learn from one another. That's a beautiful thing that we've had in this community. We never, and I have to say this again, we never will what's the word I'm looking for? Play down the importance of our mother tongue. We're always thankful to our parents and our ancestors for giving us the culture we have, the identity we have. But of course, we now have inherited a new identity by being born, a lot of us born and raised in the West. And of course, our children, inshallah, will develop and inherit a more diverse culture.
Inshallah, no, you're right. And I don't think we will even be having this discussion if we were not living in the West.
Yeah,
so the fact we're living in the West
means we know we can know each other. We can learn from each other, inshallah.
The other thing I want to touch upon is, which I think is very important to mention, is social media and why it's important to have our amazing lecturers and scholars and reciters and, nauha khans and ziyara reciters, Quranic reciters, all come online. Because when you're in English, when you're posting whatever content you are, whatever that Islamic content you are doing, it's in the English language.
Yeah.
Those people who are on this platform, be it Instagram, be it Twitter, wherever it be it YouTube, they are relating to that content. And they are learning from you. And they're not being distracted by other platforms or other people or other figures who are on the platform. So the more English content that you can put on these social platforms, the more will benefit the world.
Yeah, I mean, we have so many scholars, mashallah, who are so well versed in the English language that they can reach the masses with their eloquence. So many scholars who, for example, have connections and relations with academic institutions, with the professional world. And learning from them not only educates us and our community, but also reaches
the wider world.
Yeah. There are so many people, for example, on various apps, a lot of our scholars on various apps who are speaking to the general public, whether it's through tweeting or whether it's through Instagram lives or whatever it is. But those scholars who are doing that, may Allah bless them, because the work they're putting in is further to the minbar, and they're giving some more relatable content. They're speaking to people, and of course the English language has brought us together in that regard.
And you know what the beauty behind the point that I'm saying here is because I have seen how it's affected the community. Because sometimes you have people, because they don't have a mother tongue, they can be originally Arab, they can be originally Iranian, African, whatever it is, but they don't speak the mother tongue language. So because English is there, it's helping them gain knowledge. So if we do have this, I love all these scholars, by the way they, make amazing content and so relatable to the people who are following them, that they have followers of people you wouldn't even imagine will be interested in content that has to do with faith or Karbala or Imam Hussain. But the fact is in English is giving a connection to them, is bringing them towards the faith.
Inshallah, I mean, as a community, we pray maybe we can get closer towards that stage where we have more institutions like Ahlul Bayt TV and of course the other English speaking channels. Everyone is doing great work. We're trying to work together. That's the goal, inshallah, of our ummah. And of course our community organizations who are hosting programs in the mother tongue as well as in English. Because at the end of the day, as we always say, the message of Abu Abdullah is universal, is eternal. So whatever language you're consuming that message in, it's something I think for us all to benefit from. And
can I add something very
Bismillah.
nice? I just thought, for example, you can go to the Hausa in Iraq.
Yeah.
And they teach you in Arabic. You can go to the Hausa in Iran. They teach in Farsi. So, they have the same hadaf, the same goal, which is to, teach the faith, but in their own mother tongue languages.
And that's beautiful. Culture, as we've said, culture is beautiful. Culture is a beautifying asset, to our identity and to our personalities.
There's even a rise of English Hausa, by the way. I've seen
of course.
MashaAllah.
And it's a beautiful thing, mashallah, because we talked about bringing people who are brought into the faith, people who have found the faith, found with Ali ibn Abi Talib, being able to give avenues and content, education, material out there is so important. The more we have, the more, inshallah, we will expand and grow as a community, both in terms of quantity and quality.
Of course.
That's our goal. Brothers and sisters, we want to hear from you. Like I've said, drop any comments you have down below and let us know what you think, because, of course, this is a really, really interesting discussion, especially in these holy nights. and inshallah we'll be back next week, but we don't want you to miss that notification. So subscribe to the YouTube After Maghrib Podcast YouTube channel and get that notification the next time a podcast goes up. Said Ali, anything to add?
No, all I can say is I really hope everyone's benefiting from this podcast and our previous podcast, and inshallah everyone's learning whatever language you're attending Majalis in, you are learning and gaining and connecting with the faith and Imam Hussain alayhi salam. But like Ahmed said, do engage with the podcast. Let's hear from you. If you have any suggestions, maybe you have your own opinion, maybe you have a conflicting opinion to me or my co-host brother Ahmed here, let us know, be part of the conversation.
Take care everyone, and we'll see you next week. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Baik ya Hassan.